orchestra kind of ceased to exist, and so did my day position on staff there. And I was furloughed for quite some time, and it didn't look like there was anything resolving with that. So I started looking for something else to do. And it was pretty easy segue to bring those skills into a different application.
Yeah, we've spoken with a couple of musicians about what happened during COVID. What was your experience like? I mean, did you try to do virtual as some did? Was it just complete shutdown? What was your experience?
Yeah, it was tough. I think it was tough for everybody. I think I started out like, yay, okay, I get some time off, and this will be fun, and um, I'm really motivated. I'm going to work on all this stuff, and I'm going to get so much better, and I'm going to practice every day. And I started making collaborations virtually with some of my friends, and you can see some of those on my website, and I think there's a bunch on my Facebook too. They were so much fun. We started this little orchestra. We called it the TV Land Orchestra, and we did TV themes. So we did green. The first thing we did, I think, was Sanford and Son, and then we did Green Acres, and we did the A Team. We did. Oh, I don't remember. There were a whole bunch of them. So, and we were having a blast, and it was really great. But pretty soon, everybody was doing that, and it got boring watching them because every single musician out there was making one, and we got tired of it too, and it just grew old, and you really wanted to be with people again. It was really hard to do that. It was fun, but it was hard to do it virtually because
Imagine it was the same thing for lessons too, because obviously you're a teacher also, and obviously all that had to go to Zoom also.
yeah, when before the pandemic, I had already been teaching virtually, but it wasn't to the extent that I taught virtually after the pandemic started. And I think that was very draining.
Yeah. No,
It's still good to see everybody and to have that relationship the best way that you can. But I found that we all were really missing being together. There's an energy that you can't have over Zoom.
yeah. I mean, my son who plays in the band, I mean, he teaches music lessons during the day, and that had to all go to Zoom, and he teaches several different things. And obviously it's really, really tough to compare sounds and everything else when you're using this format as opposed to getting together one-to-one. So, I mean, obviously he's happy to be getting back together with people, but obviously you had to deal. And the Zoom stuff's not going away. So a combination of having both things obviously opens more doors for you.
Yeah, I think like with a lot of businesses as well, there was a pivot that was mandatory during the pandemic, and people started doing things that they never imagined that they would do, that they're going to keep doing, right? So it was a good thing in that way too. If you really want to put a positive spin on it, there's the positivity right there.
Yeah, there were some things that came out of the pandemic. Uh, Certainly, remote working, video conferencing that we had been moving towards for a long time, but there was a resistance to. And then when you didn't have a choice, people started doing it. It's like, oh, well, why were we so resistant to this?
Yeah, I mean, in that way, it was really fruitful, right?
Yes.
Yeah, they said in a lot of ways that pushed communications and logistics and so on and so forth ahead by several years, to where a lot of people thought we weren't going to be doing a lot of this stuff until like 2030. But because we had to, we're doing it now. And there's so many benefits to being able to do things both ways, especially depending on what type of business you're in. Because again, for many, many people, it's opened up the whole world as their stage, pun intended.
Yes, yes. I was just talking with a prospective member for the chamber who mentioned the same thing. They had started their business right before the pandemic, like right before the pandemic. And then all of a sudden they had to jump to like their 2-year or 3-year or 5-year plan of being more virtual, and their business just jumped to that model. And it actually was really good for them going forward, but it was kind of scary at first.
So we mentioned that you were teaching virtually. You taught before the pandemic. How long have you been teaching?
I have been teaching. My first little student probably walked through the doors when I was in maybe 8th or 9th grade. My mom was kind of spreading the word around the community that I was available. $5 a lesson. So, and I have to admit, I wasn't a very good teacher back then. I didn't really intend to be a teacher. I intended to be a performer. And I had another little student when I was in college, and she was amazing. And I guess the director of the community division at the Hart School where I went to school heard her, and they were kind of trying to recruit me to teach there. And I did it. I started to do it just because it was a job and it was for the money. I was still in school when I got hired to teach there. And that first year was rough, man. But I started to realize that anything that somebody wasn't learning, I had responsibility for. And it wasn't like, what's wrong with these guys? It's how can I do a better job? So it was a tremendous growth opportunity for me. And I grew to be a really good teacher and to really love it.
Yeah, and it's also an advantage that you were teaching while you were still in school, because there is no better way to solidify your own learning than to teach it to somebody else.
Yeah, absolutely. And even when I was out of school, I've always maintained that I'd love to keep a studio going because it encourages me to be better. And I become a better player when I'm helping other people become better players.
Yeah, so I think the theme of your career is just unintended consequences, because you've gone from one thing to just taking advantage of opportunities as they showed up.
You know, I guess that's true. I really never thought of it that way, but when you say it that way, I realized, wow, that's really what has happened. And I'm kind of proud of myself when I think of it that way, because I've managed to pivot so often.
Well, you've managed to pivot, but also you were able to see these opportunities and you didn't shy away from them. That's, we've spoken to so many people who they'll look back and go, yeah, could have done this, but really didn't think it was for me, or didn't want to get out of my comfort zone. You just jumped in.
No, you know what? I guess you're right, but I don't think it felt that way to me. Inside my head, I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm not, but I think it's the performer in me. Sometimes you're thinking it's an oh my God moment, and you just have to just do it. And so I freak out and then I do it.
Yeah, but I mean, it's part of who you are, and you know that you're talented, and every performance that you do, every student that you teach, and so on and so forth, just adds fuel to the fire. So you've had momentum going for yourself for a long, 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 long time, and that just attracts other opportunities, obviously.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And I was listening to one of your previous podcasts about the law of attraction. And I've always maintained that, like, somehow, like, if I put something out there, it sort of happens. And that's been something I've always said when I get the itch for something else.
Yep.
Because I get itchy. I'm a very itchy person. Like, I have to change things up often. When I get the itch, if you kind of put it out there, in a positive way, it kind of happens.
Yeah. Thoughts become things.
Yeah.
Yes.
Principle.
And so far today, we've put out into the universe that you want to play with a Latin band, you want to open a studio. So we'll see when these things will happen. Yeah.
We'll see.
So obviously, now that the pandemic is sort of winding down, you've gotten back into performing. What's coming up performance-wise?
Well, something for you to know, which I don't even think you knew, Eric, even though we've seen each other a lot this year. I did start playing in the fall, and 2 months in, I had an injury that caused me to have to stop, and I've had a frozen shoulder I think I was out for 6 months. And I just started 3 or 4 weeks ago. I just started being able to play again. And fortunately, the season is mostly over, but I'm back. And I was just with the New Haven Symphony this past week. I had the Waterbury Symphony, did the Springfield Symphony, and I'm going to be playing on the Green in New Haven second weekend in June, I think.
Nice. So actually, come to think of it, I think somebody did mention the frozen shoulder to me. I'll be honest, I do not know what that means. So why don't you tell us what a frozen shoulder is?
It's just a mysterious thing that happens to people. Sometimes it's related to an injury, sometimes it's not. Where your shoulder, it's called adhesive capsulitis, where there are adhesions in the shoulder capsule, and it stops the shoulder from being able to have full range of motion. Sometimes people have a tear or something that causes it, but my arm couldn't even get up into the position to hold the flute. My right arm. Yep.
Well, obviously, since you performed this past weekend, you're recovered at least to a certain extent.
Yep. I can't get my arm behind my back yet, but I can play the flute. So I'm another really great opportunity for gratitude, because I didn't realize how much I missed it until I was back doing it again.
Well, it's good that you're back doing it. And we are just about out of time. So if somebody wants to see you perform, you just said you'll be in New Haven in June. What's the dates on that?
I think it's the 11th. With the New Haven Symphony, we'll be on the Green. Whatever that Saturday is in June, that's I think the next thing.
All right. And if somebody wants to get more information about the Connecticut River Valley Chamber, how can they do that?
Oh, that's easy. But you can just Google it if you want, but you can go to the website, www.crvchamber.org, or they can email me, kim@crvchamber.org.
Great. We are so glad you could spend this time with us. And Chip, what do you think is the big takeaway this week?
I just love the story. You found out your talents. You found out things that you love to do. We talked a lot about personal strategic planning, working on the person in the mirror. And it's really nothing more than writing down likes, interests, things that you're good at, and so on and so forth, finding your passion and purpose and just going out and doing it. And the more that you do, just like you are Exhibit A, the more opportunities that you have. And, as the shirt here says, life is good. So congratulations. It's so wonderful to hear your story.
Thank you very much. It was really wonderful to share it with you.
Yeah, I think for me, the big takeaway is take advantage of opportunities when they occur. That's, you can learn more about yourself, learn more about those opportunities, and you never know where it's going to take you.
Yeah, I agreed. You never know. You don't know until you try.
That's it. You've been listening to the Success Showcase. You can catch us every week at xvadio.com/podcasts, the Apple Podcasts app, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Audible, and wherever you find podcasts. Remember, make this your best week ever and make next week even better. We'll see you then.